Okay, so Brad, at the beginning of our conversation, you referenced a few major trends. I want to pick up the conversation on public and private partnerships.
Right.
No alliteration intended there. Public and private partnerships.
There you go.
So public and private partnerships, I think, is a great description of some real change that's happening out there. Clearly, it's a major shift in what you're saying.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what is a public-private partnership and why is it such an important trend to be paying attention to?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're seeing, especially in large construction and build kind of environments, is this partnership between the city, the university, and corporations. And to some extent, we're also seeing it maybe in how instructional delivery is being done. We talked about the story of a healthcare provider partnering with a university to provide continuing ed and certification for their nurses. Same kind of thing is happening in terms of spatial planning. And they seem to be happening more and more around larger venues. So an example might be a football stadium or an athletic facility. And the idea is that instead of the school owning that athletic facility, I might have a partnership with the city. I might have a partnership with some branding with corporations, and that venue is used for my football games. And then when it's not used for that, it's repurposed for a number of different, maybe even non-athletic uses. Right.
So the larger venue in particular is changing quite a bit.
Yeah.
In the educational environment, this is the difference between it being like a capital asset and it's funded and paid for by capital expenditure and budget,
right,
versus this idea that external monies, either through philanthropic avenues or corporate avenues,
right.
You see this as really being a major on the rise thing happening.
We do. And originally I thought it was really relegated to maybe some of the smaller markets and smaller schools, but we're seeing it in the D1 universities across the country right now. And so I'll give you an example of maybe a smaller market, right, is maybe in Fargo. And so the Fargo Dome was put together, built specifically around this idea of football. And I think they play something like 6 or 8 games there a year. So what do you do with that the rest of the time?
Right, yeah.
It's a non-athletic
Hopefully
facility.
it's a sellout, every game.
Exactly, right?
Right. And how much does the stadium cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So that's an example of public-private partnership.
Yeah.
And so on one weekend, you've got the football team playing, and the next weekend, Celine Dion singing there.
Wow.
And so there's this multi-use kind of environment that's way beyond just athletics.
In your experience in navigation in the space, do you find that this is becoming a competitive differentiator for the institution itself?
Yes.
Like how they partner, what they're partnering for. You talk a little bit about what you see from a competitive standpoint in terms of those partnerships.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So I think it improves a university's competitiveness through maybe 3 direct and indirect avenues. One is they get access now to a campus or a venue that they probably could not get access to before. And because of the multi-use nature of that venue, there's a lot of technology and accoutrements that are there so that the experience of the student or the fans or whatever it is in these larger venues is very different. It's amped up quite a bit. And they probably, for a lot of these smaller schools, couldn't probably get there on their own. I think there's a direct impact on the budget of the school. And all of us know today that student debt is a really big issue. And so a lot of the universities are trying to figure out how do we address the student debt crisis, not only that's existing, but in future graduating classes.
Right.
And so by partnering financially on these big capital expenditures, it helps drive that down. I think that there's a third element that may not be so obvious, and that when there's corporate sponsorships in the private sector is partnering with that university, there's a brand affinity that happens as a result of that, and regardless of whether it's the consumption of their product or the ability to recruit students out of the school into the workforce.
So I want to split those two audiences for a second, the public and the private.
Right.
If I'm sitting on the public side and I haven't really explored a private partnership yet, what are some of the gotchas that you got to be careful, when you're moving down that path towards that private partnership that affects things on the public side? And when I say things, I'm talking about affiliations, mission of school.
Right,
They're it's probably different from a private institution to a public institution. But on the education side, what is the I gotcha that you're not really dialed into that now because you've seen it a few times?
Yeah, so I think that there's a struggle on the university side to not be brand biased, and so that a affinity towards a private sector partner that's maybe more obvious than maybe a foundation or a philanthropic donation, but really more of a sponsorship. I think that a lot of universities are concerned about them appearing to be too biased, and that somehow is going to color or taint the instruction that they're giving or the learning that's happening on the campus. I don't know that it's actually that critical, but there certainly is this bias or concern around it, and you want to navigate that thoughtfully. That's probably the biggest concern I see.
So on the other side, if I'm a private entity and I'm looking into sponsorship potentially, what do I need to be sensitive to as I move into the private arena? No pun intended, right? So literally, I'm moving into, clearly I want to have access to the students, but what do I got to be aware of as I'm moving into that type of a partnership?
Yeah, so let's think about that public-private partnership in maybe different categories. So one is related to the sponsorship of large capital expenditures, or maybe like an arena or something like that. And in that particular case, I think it's a little bit easier to navigate because you're sponsoring a building rather than sponsoring the school. The other side of it, though, is that there's a lot of public-private partnerships that go on at an academic or a research level.
Right.
And the lessons learned from that should probably be applied to these other kinds of partnerships.
We're not talking about rocket science here per se.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
And so learning from those experiences around research and private affiliation and partnerships and technology endowments and all of those kinds of things can be applied maybe to some of these larger capital style projects.
Yeah, good. Design implications. So when you're going in,
huge, right?
Huge, yeah. Right. So you're talking about a major, large venue. There's got to be multi-purpose needs as you're going into it. So that probably points to numerous design challenges and implications that have got to be considered at the start.
Yeah.
So rather than just talk broadly about design implications, I want you to talk about maybe what the best are doing to make sure that they're ahead of it.
Yeah, that's really a good question. So I would say to you that there's different kinds of design implications, even just within the sphere of technology. So some of those are hardcore capital kind of expenditures. I'm thinking of like media and lighting and scoreboards and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then there's other technologies that really, really should remain very, very lightweight and agile. And I'm thinking about things like, suites and media and digital signage and wayfinding, which are all part of creating a unified experience for the person that's at the venue. Some of those need to be thoughtful, and you need to expect that you're going to have a pretty long life expectancy.
Right.
Other technologies really need to be more lightweight and very adaptable, and probably more software-based, less hardware-based.
Right. Where's the biggest mistake or mistakes that are made when you go into the design of a venue? Now that you hit these are the best, these is what the best do.
Yeah.
Talk about the
mistakes.
Man, if I could stay away from that, what would I make sure I stay away from?
Yeah, so I think the challenge for us, in particular in the AV space, so I'm just going to kind of narrow it down to AV for a moment. Mm-hmm. In the AV space, I think we as an industry want to immediately jump into engineering. Okay, so this is the SPL level. This is the frequency response I need.
Right.
We want to get right into the engineering of whatever it is
our
that we're doing.
expertise, right?
It's the language we talk.
Yeah,
right?
Let's go there.
Yeah,
right.
We're very comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
What we're not so comfortable doing is really tying that to the human experience.
Yeah.
And so what we want to have is a conversation that really starts with the idea of, can you explain to me the atmosphere we're trying to create. Can you explain to me the ideal emotion that we want to connect with in the heart of the person that's coming to visit the venue? Can we define what that experience is that we want to have? And from there, create the design track that then leads to the engineering track.
Yeah.
But we want to skip that for some reason.
Right.
We want to count the number of seats in the venue, and we want to measure the distance between the seat and the speaker, and we want to calculate an SPL level.
Right.
Which is important.
Right.
But it's probably not as important as
we
creating
know
an
we're
experience.
going there, but we're jumping there.
Yeah.
And and you've talked a lot about experience and the human factors and the outcomes as we've been talking today. Can you share an example where you have really focused on the outcome part and where you've thought, maybe broadly about human factors, but you talk about the outcome comes first, and it's that alignment process around outcome before you get into the technology. You share like how someone actually does this, and if you have maybe a project that you could highlight where that was the case.
Yeah, it was where we're really focused on outcomes. So we're talking about this in the context of maybe a large venue or an arena or a stadium. And so I would say to you that there's been a number of projects where what we've done is we've designed a different kind of viewing experience for the attendee at that event.
Right.
So let's put that in the context of maybe a football game. The intention is to focus on the playing field. And so what we want to do is we want to augment the experience of what's happening on the playing field. And that might happen through visual cues in large format displays. That might happen in visual cues maybe with flat panels near the seats. That might happen through visual cues that are on my phone.
Right.
And what I'm able to do is I'm able to pick what I want to see, but it's always focused on the playing field.
Right.
Now flip that over, same stadium, same arena, but I'm not playing a football game. I'm hosting an esports competition.
Right.
The playing field now is imaginary, it's virtual.
Yeah.
It's miles wide, not 50 yards wide.
Right, right.
And so the ability to immerse that audience or attendee into that playing environment is very, very different now. And so it's much, much more experiential. They could sit at home and watch it on their gaming machine,
right,
or watch it on Twitch.
Yeah.
They're there because they want to experience it. They want the music, they want the pyro, they want it's not the impact of the gamers against each other. It's the experience of being there as the game unfolds.
Right.
Very different, same technologies, very different experience.
No doubt esports is hot. Do you have a preferred game, Brad, that you play?
Do I have a preferred game that I play? Yes. I have told many in the esports industry that when I retire from AV, I'm going to become a shoutcaster for Mario Kart Wii. That's my game.
So, and I love that. Do you have a handle for your Mario?
No, I don't have a handle because I don't play online.
I don't even know that it's a handled game, right?
Yeah.
My kids play quite a few games. I'm a gamer of sorts. I don't have one that I play a lot.
Yeah.
But I totally dig the whole esports scene.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I think it's fascinating. I think what's happening around the events is truly inspiring in the sense of the immersion aspect of the game, and it's a sport.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of debate around, the viability of esports as a sport.
Yeah.
I remember about a year ago hearing a presentation on a panel given by Mark Cuban and Shaquille O'Neal and others, and talking about the dexterity required, to be able to play these games effectively. And so, how long before you think we see NCAA-sponsored esports teams?
Yeah. So I think it's probably in the next 24 months.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent this just in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
I've been with the thought leaders at League of Legends, with Overwatch and Activision. I was talking with the coach of esports at Boise State, at the University of Utah.
So they're already there.
They're already there. Every Pac-12 school has got some version of esports going on.
Yeah.
Every D1 school has some version of esports that's developing. The question really is it a intramural sport, or
Yeah.
is it a varsity sport?
Yeah.
And the question that you're trying to get to is, will NCAA sanction it as a varsity sport?
Will there be a national championship
Yeah.
of a take your pick game?
Yeah.
You know?
I think the championship will absolutely happen.
Wow.
Here's the thing I find fascinating
Right.
about this. So I agree with you. I happen to believe that if NCAA sanctioned it, it would help legitimize it, right? Not that it's not legitimate, but they would kind of put
Yeah.
it in that category as the other NCAA sanctioned sports. The thing that I'm finding is the big challenge used to be, how do I recruit these esports athletes into my esports program?
Right. Right.
Because they're making more money. The good gamers are making more money playing
Yeah.
than they would as a collegiate athlete.
As a student, right?
Yeah.
Right. In that regard, sure.
Right up until
Yeah.
a few months ago, where
Yeah.
the state of California said, no, we're going to start paying students. And now that's adapted,
Right.
moving across the NCAA sanction environment.
And I would add to that to say the rate of innovation that happens around esports in general as
Right.
well is a great feather in any institution's cap in terms
Right.
of who it, the people it recruits, and then the opportunities I think that abound.
Yeah.
That's another example of public-private partnerships.
It's a great way to bring it back
Yeah.
to that. That's
Yeah.
a great example of public-private partnership.
Excellent.
And we're seeing today, kind of sticking with the esports theme, what we're seeing today as we're designing and helping to architect technologies for a lot of new athletic facilities. We have the traditional kinds of athletic elements that you're looking at, football, basketball, swimming, whatever. But esports is clearly part of the design process because we believe that it's active at many of these schools. It's in continuing to develop at many of these schools. And some of these schools are asking us to create specifically an esports athletics facility.
Wow.
And that's really cool to watch.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So as we finish up here today, I want you to think about this question, which is, I'm just getting started down the road, and I'm considering what I should be making sure that I plan for, or I haven't even started down the road. What could I do to get started? So, and in particular, in the context of the AV design, some of the
Right.
cues that you'd referenced, what advice would you have for an organization that's either down the road that they need to be thinking about or just getting started?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I think it all starts with trying to understand what the experience is you're creating, what the emotion is you're invoking, what the attachment is to the person that's going to visit the venue. And if we're uncertain around that, then let's gather people around us that can help us articulate what that is, and then from there move into a design and then ultimately an engineering phase. Let's slow down that transition from interest to engineering and make sure that we capture really what the outcome and the experience is. That's the first thing I would really talk about. And the second thing I would really talk about is I would begin to ask the question, are there partners that I can bring alongside of me, whether those are public or private partners, that would help maybe lower the initial cost impact? And as a result of that, I can reinvest. Even if I had the budget to start with, I might be able to reinvest that into other technologies or experiences that would really create a venue that people want to come to, as opposed to just, this is where we play this particular sport.
Yeah, super exciting. So we want to thank our sponsors today again,
indeed.
Bose Professional and AVI Systems. And Brad, the last word, how does somebody get in touch with you and your organization if they want to talk a little bit more about public-private partnerships in education?
Yeah, we love having the conversation. You can find us at avisystems.com. That's a great place to start. You can get in touch with me from there, but we also have offices that are near just about everybody, and that's a good place to get started.
Is that an open LinkedIn invite?
It is,
invitation?
yeah. Brad Souza at LinkedIn, come on.
Brad Souza, come on. All right.